The spaceship landed in the middle of the night. Nobody saw it coming except the government people who had been waiting for months. Inside that ship was someone who would change everything for Dr. David Chen, a scientist who studied life from other planets. David had spent 3 years learning about the Lyrian people. He knew their language, their customs, and their strange way of living. But knowing facts from books is very different from meeting someone face to face. When the ship's door opened, his heart started beating fast. She stepped out slowly. Her skin was pale blue, almost like moonlight on water. She was tall and moved like she was floating rather than walking. Her long silver hair caught the wind, and her eyes were the color of deep ocean water. This was Zara, his arranged bride, from another world. The government had planned this marriage to keep peace between Earth and the Lyrian planet. Both worlds were scared of a dangerous enemy that lived in the dark space between stars. This marriage was supposed to show that humans and Lyrians could work together. But looking at Zara's cold face, David wondered if this plan would actually work. "Dr. Chen," she said in perfect English, though her voice sounded like music mixed with ice. "I am Zara of the Northern Crystal Territories. I understand we are to be joined in your human ceremony." David tried to smile and make her feel welcome. "Please, just call me David. Welcome to Earth. I hope your journey wasn't too difficult." Zara's skin changed color slightly, becoming more gray than blue. David had read that Lyrians' skin showed their emotions, but she seemed to be fighting against it. The journey was acceptable. "When do we begin the ceremony?" Her words hit him like cold water. She talked about their wedding like it was a business meeting. David realized this was going to be much harder than he thought. The first few weeks were awful. David tried everything to make Zara comfortable. He cooked special food that wouldn't hurt her sensitive stomach. He kept the house cool because Lyrians liked lower temperatures. He even learned some songs in her language. But nothing worked. Zara stayed in the east wing of their big house. She came out only for meals, and even then she barely spoke. She would sit across from him at the dinner table, eating small bites and staring at her plate. When David asked about her home planet, she would give short answers that didn't really tell him anything. "What was it like growing up on Lyria?" David asked one evening, hoping to start a real conversation. "Cold, quiet, proper." Zara answered without looking up from her food. David felt frustrated but tried again. "Do you miss it?" This time Zara's skin turned slightly purple before she controlled it. "Missing things is not productive. I am here now. That is what matters." But David could see that she did miss home. Sometimes he caught her standing by the window at night, looking up at the stars. Her skin would glow softly in the darkness, showing colors he didn't understand yet. When she noticed him watching, she would quickly move away and the colors would disappear. The worst part was how scared she seemed of him. Not scared like he might hurt her, but scared like she might actually start to like him. Whenever he got too close, even by accident, she would step back quickly. If their hands touched while passing dishes at dinner, she would pull away like she had touched fire. David started to understand that this wasn't just about being from different planets. Someone had taught Zara that caring about people from other worlds was dangerous. Every time she almost smiled or seemed interested in something he said, she would catch herself and become cold again. One night, David was reading in the living room when he heard strange sounds coming from Zara's wing of the house. It sounded like someone crying, but not quite human crying. The sounds were musical and sad, like a song made of tears. He wanted to go check on her, but he knew she would just push him away again. Instead, he sat there listening and feeling terrible that she was so unhappy. He started to realize that this arrangement was probably just as hard for her as it was for him. Maybe even harder. The next morning, Zara came to breakfast with her skin looking more gray than usual. Her ocean blue eyes had dark circles under them. David decided to try a different approach. "Zara," he said gently, "I know this situation isn't what either of us would have chosen, but we're both here now, and we both want our people to be safe. Maybe we could try to be friends." For just a moment, her skin flickered with warm yellow colors, but then she controlled it again. Friendship between our species is complicated. It is better to maintain proper distance. Proper according to who? David asked, and immediately saw her face close off. According to those who understand the dangers, she said firmly, and left the table. That afternoon, David was working in his study when he heard a crash from the kitchen. He ran in to find Zara standing among broken pieces of a human coffee mug, her hands shaking and her skin flashing bright red. "I apologize," she said stiffly. "I will replace the damaged item." "It's just a mug. Don't worry about it," David said, moving to help clean up the pieces. "No," Zara said sharply, her skin now showing streaks of silver. "I will manage this myself. Please leave." But as she bent to pick up the pieces, David saw something that made his heart hurt. Her skin wasn't just showing emotions, it was showing beautiful patterns. Silver lines traced across her blue skin like living artwork, creating designs that looked like stars and flowing water. When Zara realized he was staring, her skin immediately went back to plain blue. The beautiful patterns disappeared like someone had turned off a light. "You weren't supposed to see that," she whispered, looking more afraid than he had ever seen her. David realized he had just witnessed something very private and special. "Zara, it was beautiful. Why do you hide it?" She looked at him with such pain in her eyes that he wished he could take the question back. "Because beauty makes you weak, and weakness gets people killed." Before he could say anything else, she ran from the room, leaving him standing among the broken pieces of ceramic, finally understanding that Zara wasn't just homesick or scared. She had been taught to fear her own heart. That night, David lay awake thinking about the silver patterns on her skin and the way she had said that beauty makes you weak. He realized that winning her trust wouldn't be about learning her language or cooking her food. It would be about showing her that caring about someone could make you stronger, not weaker. But first, he had to figure out how to prove that to someone who had spent her whole life believing the opposite. David decided to learn everything he could about Lyrian culture. He stayed up late reading books, watching videos, and practicing their language. He wanted to understand Zara better, even if she kept pushing him away. One morning, Zara found him in the kitchen trying to make Lyrian breakfast bread. The kitchen was a mess. Flour covered the counters and something was burning on the stove. David looked up at her with flour in his hair and a hopeful smile on his face. "I thought you might like something from home," he said, holding up a lump of dough that looked nothing like bread. For the first time since she arrived, Zara's mouth almost formed a smile. Her skin flickered with soft gold colors before she controlled it. "The mixture is wrong. You have used too much water." "Will you show me the right way?" David asked. Zara hesitated. Then, very slowly, she walked over to the counter. "The key is in the temperature of the ingredients. Everything must be exactly cool, like morning air on Lyria." As they worked together, Zara began talking about her home planet. She told him about the crystal gardens where she grew up, where plants made of living glass grew toward 3 purple moons. She described forests that could hear emotions and would sing different songs depending on how people felt. "The trees knew when I was sad," she said quietly, mixing the dough with careful movements. "They would play gentle music until I felt better." David watched her face as she spoke. For these few minutes, she forgot to be guarded. Her skin showed soft blue and green patterns, and her voice became warmer. He could see the person she really was underneath all that fear. "It sounds beautiful," David said. "Do you think I could ever see it?" Zara's hand stopped moving. The warm colors drained from her skin. "That would not be appropriate. This arrangement is temporary." But David had seen something in her eyes when she talked about home. She wasn't just homesick. She was lonely, and maybe, just maybe, she was starting to think of him as someone who could understand that loneliness. 3 weeks later, everything changed. David was coming home from work when he saw smoke rising from their house. His heart stopped. A group of angry protesters had surrounded the building, throwing rocks and shouting horrible things about aliens. David tried to push through the crowd, but there were too many people. He could hear glass breaking and smell something burning. Where was Zara? Was she safe? Suddenly, the front door burst open. Zara came out moving faster than anything David had ever seen. She was a blur of blue and silver, moving between the protesters so quickly they couldn't even see her. In seconds, she had their weapons and was standing in front of David like a protective wall. "Leave now," she said to the crowd. And her voice was different, deeper, more powerful. "Or face the consequences." The protesters looked at her glowing skin and her impossible speed, and most of them ran away. But a few stayed, throwing more rocks. One hit David in the shoulder and he fell to the ground. Zara's skin exploded with bright red colors. She moved again, faster than before, and suddenly the remaining protesters were on the ground, confused and scared but not seriously hurt. Within minutes, the police arrived and took everyone away. In the quiet that followed, David and Zara sat in their damaged living room. They both had cuts and bruises, but nothing serious. David was more amazed than hurt. "I had no idea you could move like that," he said, carefully cleaning a cut on Zara's arm. "My people are faster and stronger than humans," she said, wincing, as he applied medicine. "We have to be. Our world is not as safe as yours." "Thank you for protecting me," David said. "You didn't have to do that." Zara looked at him with surprise. "Oh, of course I did. You are my responsibility." But David heard something else in her voice, something that sounded almost like care. As he bandaged her wounds, he noticed her skin again, showing those beautiful silver patterns he had glimpsed before. This time she didn't hide them. "What do those patterns mean?" he asked gently. Zara was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "They show what I am feeling inside. All Lyrians have them, but we are taught to hide them from other species. They are considered too personal, too revealing." "They're beautiful," David said, and meant it. Zara's skin brightened slightly. "On Lyria, only family members and very close friends see these patterns. It is intimate." David understood. She was showing him something sacred, something private, and she was trusting him not to hurt her for it. "Why were you sent here, really?" David asked. "I know it's for the Alliance, but there must be more to it." Zara's patterns shifted to darker colors. "I spoke against our leaders. I said that our strict rules about emotions and connections were making us weak, not strong. They decided to send me away as punishment, thinking that an arranged marriage would teach me to follow rules better." David felt angry on her behalf. "So they sent you here hoping you would suffer?" "They sent me here hoping I would learn to be properly obedient," Zara said. "But being here with you is not suffering. It is confusing. You are not what I expected humans to be." "What did you expect?" "Cruel. Selfish. Interested only in using my people for our advanced technology." She looked at him directly for the first time in weeks. "But you ask about my feelings. You try to make food I like. You learn my language not to control me, but to understand me." David felt his heart race. "Because I want to understand you. I want to know the real person behind all those rules you were taught." That night, something changed between them. Zara didn't retreat to her wing of the house immediately after dinner. Instead, she helped David clean up the damage from the attack. They worked together quietly, and every now and then, David caught her looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. When they were done, she stood in the doorway as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. "David," she finally said, "thank you. Not just for tonight, but for trying so hard to make this work. Thank you for trusting me enough to show me who you really are," he replied. For just a moment, her skin showed the most beautiful pattern he had seen yet, swirls of gold and silver that looked like starlight. Then she turned and went to her room, leaving David with the feeling that everything was about to change. The next few weeks were different. Zara started eating breakfast with David every morning. She would sit across from him and actually talk about things, not just answer his questions with one word, but have real conversations. She told him about Lyrian music, which was made of colors as much as sounds, She explained how their cities were built inside giant crystals that could grow and change shape. She even laughed at his jokes, though she always seemed surprised when she did it, like laughter was something she had forgotten how to do. David started teaching her about Earth culture too. He showed her movies that made her gasp with wonder, played her music that made her skin shimmer with appreciation, and took her to his garden where he was trying to grow some Lyrian plants alongside. Earth flowers. This is remarkable, Zara said one evening, kneeling beside a small Lyrian crystal flower that was actually blooming in earth soil. I did not think our plants could survive in your environment. I had to adjust the soil and create a special light system, David explained, proud of his work. But I thought you might like to have something from home. Zara touched the crystal petals gently, and her skin showed soft rainbow colors. No one has ever done something like this for me before. David was about to respond when his colleague Jake arrived with some work documents. Jake was friendly and funny, and David had worked with him for years. They joked around while reviewing the papers, and Jake told stories that made David laugh. David didn't notice how quiet Zara had become. He didn't see her skin turning dark red, or the way her hands clenched into fists. He was too busy enjoying his friend's visit to realize that Zara was experiencing something completely new and terrifying. After Jake left, Zara disappeared into her room and didn't come out for dinner. David knocked on her door, worried. Zara, are you feeling okay? You missed dinner. I am fine, came her voice through the door, but she didn't sound fine at all. Can I come in? I brought you some food. There was a long pause. Then the door opened slightly. Zara's skin was still showing angry red streaks, and her eyes looked confused and upset. What is your relationship with that human male? She asked. Abruptly, David was surprised by the question. Jake? He's my work partner and friend. Why? Friends, Zara repeated like she was testing the word. You seemed very comfortable with him. You laughed together. You have history. Suddenly, David understood. Zara, are you jealous? Her skin flashed bright crimson. I do not understand that word. But David could see that she did understand it, and it was scaring her. On Lyria, showing jealousy probably meant showing weakness, and weakness was dangerous. It's okay to feel that way, David said gently. It means you care about someone. I should not care, Zara said, backing away from him. I was not sent here to develop feelings. I was sent here to fulfill a duty. But you do have feelings, David said, stepping closer. I can see them in your skin, hear them in your voice. And that's not wrong, Zara. That's what makes you alive. She looked at him with panic in her eyes. My people would say I am becoming corrupted, that human emotions are making me weak and unreliable. Your people aren't here, David said, and from what I've seen, your emotions make you stronger. Nah. For 3 days after their almost kiss, Zara barely spoke to David. She would come to meals, eat quietly, and leave without making eye contact. Her skin stayed a dull gray color, like storm clouds that never brought rain. David felt like he was living with a ghost. He tried to give her space, but the silence was killing him. Every time he started to approach her, she would find an excuse to leave the room. It was like she was building walls around herself, and each day the walls got higher. Then the emergency message arrived. David was in his study when his computer started flashing red alerts. Military communications. His hands shook as he opened the message. The news was terrible. The shadow creatures from deep space had launched a massive attack on the outer colonies. 3 human settlements were already destroyed. The Lyrian home fleet was under heavy fire. Both Earth and Lyria were, calling for immediate military response. But here was the worst part. All diplomatic personnel were being recalled. Zara had to return to Lyria within 48 hours to help lead their defense fleet. David was being assigned to head a research team on a distant space station. They would be separated by thousands of light years, possibly forever. David printed the message and walked slowly to find Zara. She was in the garden sitting beside the crystal flowers he had grown for her. Even from a distance, he could see her skin showing deep blue patterns of sadness. Zara, he said softly. We need to talk. She looked up at him, and he could see that she already knew. The recall orders arrived for me an hour ago, she said. I leave tomorrow night. David sat down beside her, careful not to get too close. There has to be another way. We could request to stay together, work as a diplomatic team. My people need me to fight, Zara said, but her voice was hollow. Your people need you to research new weapons. We both have duties that are more important than... She couldn't finish the sentence. More important than what? David asked. More important than us? Zara's skin flashed with gold colors before she controlled it. There is no us. There never was supposed to be. I forgot that for a while, but now I remember. David felt anger building in his chest. That's not true, and you know it. What we have is real, Zara. What you feel is real. What I feel is dangerous, she snapped, standing up quickly. What I feel makes me want to abandon my people when they need me most. What I feel makes me selfish and weak. No, David said, standing too. What you feel makes you human. I am not human, Zara shouted, her skin exploding with red and purple colors. I am Lyrian. I was sent here to do a job, not to fall in love, with someone I can never have. The words hung in the air between them. Zara's eyes went wide as she realized what she had said. Her skin went completely white. You love me, David said quietly. Zara backed away from him. I did not mean to say that. But you did say it. And it's true, isn't it? Zara's skin was cycling through colors so fast it looked like a light show. It does not matter what is true. It matters what is right. And loving you is not right for someone like me. Why? David asked, stepping closer. Because your people told you it was wrong? Because you're afraid of what others will think? Because love makes warriors weak, Zara screamed, her voice breaking. Because every time I look at you, I forget about my duty. Because when those protesters attacked us, I was not thinking about protecting the Alliance, I was only thinking about protecting you. And what's wrong with that? David shot back. What's wrong with caring more about one person than about politics and rules? Everything. Zara's skin was now showing chaotic storms of color. My mother loved my father more than her duty. She chose him over a military assignment. Because of that choice, she was not there when her squad needed her. 12 Lyrians died because she put love first. David felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Zara, that wasn't your mother's fault. She couldn't have known. She could have prevented it if she had followed orders instead of following her heart, Zara said, tears streaming down her face. I swore I would never make the same mistake. I swore I would never let feelings cloud my judgment. But you're not your mother, David said desperately. And I'm not your father. What happened to them doesn't have to happen to us. How do you know? Zara asked, her voice small and broken. How can you promise me that choosing love will not lead to disaster? David realized he couldn't promise that. He couldn't guarantee that their love would lead to happiness instead of tragedy. But looking at Zara's tear-stained face and her skin showing every emotion she was trying to hide, he knew something else. I can't promise that choosing love will be easy, he said. But I can promise that not choosing love will destroy us both. Look at yourself, Zara. Look at what fighting your feelings has done to you. Zara looked down at her skin, which was still showing chaos and pain. For the first time, she seemed to really see what David was talking about. I am miserable, she whispered. We both are, David said, because we're fighting something that's supposed to make us happy. They stood there in the garden, surrounded by flowers from two different worlds that had somehow learned to grow together. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything they wanted to say but were afraid to speak. Finally, Zara looked up at him. I am scared, David. I am so scared of loving you that it feels like dying. I'm scared too, David admitted. But I'm more scared of losing you without ever really having you. What would we do? Zara asked. Even if I admitted that I love you, Even if we decided to be together, how could it work? Our people are at war. We live on different planets. Everything about this is impossible. David took a deep breath. Then we make it possible. We find a way to serve both our peoples together. We prove that love between our species isn't weakness, it's strength. And if we fail, if choosing each other means failing our people, then we fail together, David said. But at least we would have tried. Zara stared at him for a long moment. Her skin slowly began to show softer colors, blues and silvers that looked like moonlight on water. You would really give up everything for me? She asked. I would give up everything except you, David said. Because without you, everything else doesn't matter. For the first time since the recall orders arrived, Zara smiled. It was a small, scared smile, but it was real. I love you too, she whispered. I love you so much that it terrifies me. David felt his heart explode with joy and relief. Then, let's be terrified together. But even as they finally admitted their feelings, they both knew that the hardest part was still ahead. They had one night to figure out how to save their love and their peoples at the same time. The last night before their separation, neither David nor Zara could sleep. They sat in the living room, not talking, just being together while they still could. Every few minutes, one of them would start to say something, then stop. There were too many words and not enough time. Finally, around midnight, Zara stood up. David, she said, her voice soft but determined. Will you come with me? She led him to the garden, where the mixed earth and Lyrian plants glowed softly in the moonlight. The crystal flowers were singing quietly, a sound like wind chimes mixed with distant music. I want to show you something, Zara said. Something I have never shown anyone. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them, her skin began to change, but this time she didn't fight it. She let the colors flow freely across her body. David gasped. Her skin became a canvas of living art. Swirls of gold and silver traced patterns across her arms and face. Deep blues and purples flowed like rivers down her back. Bright stars of white light appeared and disappeared across her skin like a galaxy coming to life. This is what Lyrians look like when we stop hiding, Zara said, her skin pulsing with gentle light. This is what I really am. David had never seen anything so beautiful in his life. Zara, you're incredible. These patterns tell the story of my soul, she continued. Every color, every line, every flash of light represents something I feel, something I am, something I dream of. She pointed to golden swirls near her heart. This is joy, something I never felt until I met you. She showed him silver lines that curved around her arms. This is trust, learning to believe that someone could care about me for who I really am. David watched in wonder as new colors appeared, soft pinks and warm oranges that made her skin glow like sunrise. And this? He asked, pointing to the new colors. Love, Zara said simply. Pure, honest, terrifying love. David reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. When she didn't move, he gently touched her glowing skin. It was warm and soft, and he could feel tiny vibrations, like her emotions were humming just beneath the surface. I want to show you something too, David said. He pulled out a small device from his pocket, a translator he had been working on for months. I've been learning to speak your language, but I wanted to say this perfectly. He pressed a button on the device, and when he spoke, his words came out in the musical tones of the Lyrian language. Zara of the Crystal Territories, you have changed my world. Before you came, I was just existing. Now I am truly alive. Zara's skin brightened with surprised joy. No human had ever spoken to her in perfect Lyrian before. David continued, still speaking her language. I know our people say we are too different to love each other, but standing here with you, seeing your true self, I